The French President Emmanuel Macron is paying tribute to French civilians killed in Tulle during the Nazi occupation in 1944. We're going to listen to his speech there.
Of these words are great indeed, and thank you for saying these things in French. You have spoken here, and as you say, in the silence of Oradour, nothing seems worth saying, because silence is visible and all of it is fully understandable. These houses of soot and ash, all of this reminds us of the fire, the detonation, the explosions, the shouts, the horror, the raw horror. Despite this awful memory, you can still just about sense the old French village that the children were asked to think about and imagine. You have them, the mayor, the hairdresser, the blacksmith, the activity, the smell of freshly baked bread, the children playing in the streets, and the bells marking the passage of time. But the bells have grown silent, and time have stopped at 2 p.m. on the 10th of June, 80 years to the day. At the time when a division of the Das Reich unit circled the village, that unit, the day before, had hung 99 men on the balconies in Tulle and deported another 140 or so. They are circling in, coming closer to the village and bringing together men, women, the elderly and children on the marketplace. Those who couldn't walk were shot immediately. The men are set aside, women and children are in another direction. The men in the stables and the SS set up machine guns and shot them down. The women and the children were brought together in the church, which was also gunned down and blown up and set ablaze. This sacred place was challenged and slapped immediately. It was an assault on those who believed in God and believe in men. The bodies were then put into mass graves so that they wouldn't be recognized, and the horror was extended and built upon by the lack of grief and mourning. 643 people died, including 200 women. These were not just victims, but indeed martyrs. Martyrs for indeed they were the scapegoats of freedom. They were martyrs because Oradour had become a home for the exiles, the refugees, Spanish Republicans fleeing Francoism, people from Alsace and the Moselle, refugees from the north of France, from Montpellier, from Avignon, Jews from Paris and its surrounding, and from Meurthe-et-Moselle and from Bayonne, or from abroad who had fled the persecutions. Oradour had become a smaller version of France, with its deep roots and its and spreading abroad, deep-rooted yet universal. The massacres in Oradour are truly unthinkable, unspeakable, will not disappear in time. And as the poet said, Oradour is just a cry, the name of the pain of men and the shame of men. It took 10, 20, 50, 80 years for Oradour, which was the name of shame, became the name of memories and reconciliation. This name, the name of pain and grief, is now spoken with more hope, and we can say it today, Oradour. Having you alongside us here today, Mr. President, your being here as a show of fraternity shows us that we have overcome and can overcome the storms and the difficulties, as we indeed said and showed 2 weeks ago in Germany. Both our people looked to Oradour side by side, hand in hand, and as indeed is the case with the granddaughter of Adolf Heinrich, one of the SS who took part in the massacre, and the granddaughter of the last witness we are all thinking of today, Robert Hebras. They, these women, are not afraid to face history in the eye. They are not afraid to know each other, to speak, to discuss, to bear witness, and unendingly to tell this story. They are those who today raise this beacon, leading us into the future. And following in their footsteps, we shall not be afraid of forging ahead and building together. Now, I know this has been said earlier today. In the village, there are a number of walls that have stood the test of time, and also the oak tree dating back to 1848, which hasn't collapsed. But over and beyond what has indeed survived and overcome the trails, there is the long and difficult and winding path of reconciliation. There is this path that Robert Hebras and others and members of the organizations and the mayor and his predecessors and so many of you have covered. The path that makes it possible to be aware, to know, and not to forget, and to reconcile us with each other. It is in this reconciliation that the friendship between France and Germany takes its roots, as does the future of Europe, this mad project aiming at peace. As Hannah Arendt said, forgiveness is a promise. But there is in this project nothing obvious, nothing spontaneous, nothing natural. It is in fact built on the courage of those who lived through the events and the courage of their grandchildren, as you, ladies, embody indeed. That is the path we have to follow and to walk down. Indeed, we will remember Oradour. Quite simply, we cannot forget Oradour. History sometimes repeats itself, either because it just does or because we choose to repeat it. And it is here in Oradour that the strength of reconciliation, the lifeblood of the European project can be found, as indeed we will be able to find our determination to and striving for liberty, fraternity, and equality. Thank you, Mr. President, for being here with us today and for giving the address you have given. I should like to thank all my fellow citizens for being here today in this village where nothing is ever forgotten, where we cannot forget, but where we wish, in a sense of brotherhood, build our future. Long live France, long live the Republic.
You were listening to the French President Emmanuel Macron